When people mention the Death Star, most think of the massive space station created by the Galactic Empire to scare its citizens into compliance. When Luke finally shoots that proton torpedo through the exhaust port, it feels that much better knowing what the Death Ball was capable of. The Death Star wasn't active for very long because of Galen Erso's efforts in putting a weakness in its design. Now, the Empire wasn't fully sure it was even possible to build a station at that scale, so its construction lasted around 19 years from the birth of the Empire to just before its destruction at the Battle of Yavin. The Death Star had employed over 1 million sentient beings in its lifespan. The exact numbers are as follows: 265,000 crew members, 52,000 gunners, 600,000 troops, 42,000 infantry, and 180,000 pilots and support crew. Now this begs the question, how did just 22 X-Wings even stand a chance against 90,000 pilots with 7,000 TIE fighters? The Empire should have realistically sent out thousands of pilots to absolutely wipe those rebels off the side of the ship like they ran into a bug. You could argue that the Empire was overconfident and genuinely believed the rebels stood no chance. Tarkin even makes similar remarks in the movie. I mean, can you blame them for thinking they had that one in the bag? With this knowledge, it brings up the question, why send Vader out after them? Vader goes in his personal TIE fighter to fight off just a couple of rebel pilots. Vader seems like a last resort option for serious situations, only ones that require his physical presence. Think about all the other times we see Vader going after rebels. He's either going after something of the utmost importance, or he's hunting down surviving Jedi of Order 66. During a game where you're up 42-0 in the fourth quarter, you typically tend to pull your starters. Knowing they sent out Vader must have meant the Emperor or Tarkin knew these were not just a couple rebel pilots flying to their deaths. If so, why not send out a fleet of TIEs, totaling the total population of a small town, and sweep the rebels out by lunch? Was it an inside job? Hashtag Palpatine blew up the Death Star. George Lucas obviously wasn't thinking about the logistics of a galactic space station when he was making his original cut of A New Hope. The mission was to make a hulking space station to shock the viewers and build tension, so I'll cut him some slack. The Death Star itself essentially has an economy of its own. Not only did it cost over 1 trillion credits to build, it also has tons of operating costs, and specifically labor. Of the total number of casualties, 90,000 were other non-military personnel keeping up the maintenance and mechanics of the ship, including crew members just running shops, cooking meals, and tending the Death Star bars. Even though these folks were enabling the Empire to run the galaxy, they were just everyday people like you or I. They had families, siblings, parents, and friends. I can also imagine many were slaves, working long, grueling hours for no pay and little food. Just look at the prison arc in Andor, where Cassian is inadvertently a slave for the Empire, constructing the very thing that will kill him in a few years' time. Or the group of scientists from Edu in Rogue One. They obviously weren't aligned with the Empire, but were forced into work. People like them or Cassian don't deserve to be wrapped up with the military officers just because they were helping the Empire as slaves. If they happen to be on the Death Star, rather than in a prison or on a rainy planet, does that mean they deserve to go down in the ship? That's the point I'm trying to make. When Luke shot that torpedo and blew up the Death Star, he didn't just blow up the tyrannical government's puppet of destruction. He also killed over 1 million fathers, sons, and friends. Your average trooper wasn't evil. They were just a product of propaganda and manipulation. In the book From a Certain Point of View, one story we follow is one of a young stormtrooper on Vader's Star Destroyer. When he finally gets the privilege of seeing Vader in action, he is really caught off guard by the brutality that Vader bestowed. Even when he sees Princess Leia, he can't believe a known terrorist is as pretty and human as she is. To him, this is just a job to eat and have a roof over his head. These are not senseless machines. They are individuals with lives and morals. This is not even mentioning the Death Star 2. With over 2 million troops, 550,000 being non-military personnel. The Death Star 2 was still in production and actively had more innocent workers on it than the first one. With it just being 75% complete, the fully complete structure would be a host of thousands of jobs for individuals across the galaxy. All these jobs would boost the Imperial economy even more, assuming 90% of the work wasn't done by slaves. The construction of the Death Star 2 was handled with much more urgency. After 4 years of work and only 75% complete, we can assume the construction costs would at least double the cost of the original Death Star. We can assume it cost around 2 trillion credits to build. Now this sounds like a lot, but in comparison to the GDP of the Empire, this was barely a scratch in their checkbooks. In 2015, an engineering professor at Washington University in St. Louis by the name of Zachary Feinstein did some calculations. Using models, he calculated that the Galactic Empire's GDP would be an astounding 4.6 sextillion US dollars. For reference, 1 sextillion is 1 followed by 21 zeros. That number is completely unfathomable. Assuming the conversion to galactic credits is 1-to-1, we can safely assume this wouldn't make a dent in the Empire's budget and their overall economy. Now, it's not completely unrealistic for the Star Wars galaxy, though. The Star Wars galaxy is around the same size as the Milky Way, which is 100,000 light years across. During the time of the Galactic Republic, they represented over 1.3 million worlds. We can assume the Galactic Empire has a similar figure. After all, most of the Death Star's funding came from Palpatine himself, money that he stole from his late master Plagueis, also known as Hugo Damask, after killing him in his sleep. In the end, sacrificing thousands of innocent people is incomparable to the 2 billion lives lost on Alderaan and billions more waiting to be taken. Sacrificing a few to save the many. Thank you for watching today's video. This is my first video here on YouTube, so let me know what you think of it in the comments down below. I am working on more videos for the future, so stay tuned for more. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your way out. Peace.